Hello, this is Christy. Okay, so today I'm going to be... So when it comes to editing, there's a lot that I could cover, but what I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to show you how I go about organizing my files to... So when it comes to editing, there's a lot of things that I can talk about, but I want to really show you how I like to edit because everyone edits a little bit differently. And then obviously you should watch the videos on how to use Adobe Rush before you even try to start editing. I'm not going to teach you how to use the program. I'm just going to show you how I like to edit and kind of the process that I take in order to to finish my video and to how to decide, what to put and what clips to use. So right here I have your shot list, and so you always want to have your shot list either printed or next to you while you're editing, because you want to make sure that you're following what you planned, and if you decide to change things, you also want to see why you changed it, and so you can better plan in the future. So you have your first two scenes as kids selling candy on the street and people cleaning windshields. So that's good. It's a good start to have B-roll in the beginning, and you want to try to hook people with something that's pretty engaging. This should be no longer than 5 seconds, though. You don't want people to be watching 30 seconds of B-roll, because people are going to get bored and people aren't going to understand why they're watching it. So generally, rule of thumb, I like to pull in some B-roll, and so you'll see I've already pulled in all my clips onto my timeline. And it has the video clip, and then it has the audio that I've expanded, and you can hide it. So what I like to do is I like to just start with something that's engaging. So I made a documentary of my husband making a Chinese dish called mapo tofu, and so I started with a dish and then his face. And then he goes into
Mapo
an
tofu is
interview.
a Chinese dish that consists usually of a meat and a tofu, and the meat is generally ground pork or ground beef.
So that's kind of similar to your telling the story. So it goes to him talking about mapo tofu, and then I go back to some B-roll. So this can be however long or short you want it to be. I like to keep things as short as possible, depending on really what you want to tell. So if this is representing you, you can keep on having your story told in the background, or you can show your B-roll and just have music. And so that's really up to you. For the purposes of this video that I'm making, I didn't have him continue talking, but I just focused on the B-roll. So in terms of telling my story, I actually like to pull in the interview on top of my B-roll, and I like to move it around just so that I can see it at the same time. I actually usually like to pull this underneath, so I'll actually pull this and switch it with this one. But right now, since it's here already, I'm just going to leave it. Generally, I like to pull it on the first track, and then I like to put my B-roll on the second track. So I'll pull it up like this, like this. So it'll sit right above the interview. And so this is generally how I like to edit, is this would be my first track, and then my second track is up here with all the B-roll. And so I'll cut around the B-roll to show my my interview on the bottom. And so that's what I recommend you doing for your testimony video. Is your primary video source will always be you talking, and then on top of you talking, then you'll show footage that you shot of the B-roll. And you can rearrange that however you like. You can put spaces in between. You can cut it, make it shorter if you want. But yeah, you also want to consider the aspect ratio. And so right here, it shows you that you can change the aspect ratio. I would recommend you do 16 to 9, because 16 by 9, because that's the aspect ratio that you've been using so far, and I feel like it works for you. I'm making this video for social media on Instagram, and so I'm doing it 9 by 16. You can also do it 4x5 if you're doing it on Instagram, or 1x1 if you're trying to do a square Facebook video. It really just depends. For a longer video, I like to go 16x9, so yours should be around 3 to 5 minutes, and that'll be 16x9. The shorter ones, I'll do a vertical format for shorter videos, so that's 30 seconds to a minute. And then for squares, I usually don't like to do longer than 30 seconds, or you can do a GIF. So yeah, that's typically how I like to edit. I will finish organizing all my files and all the B-roll, and then I'll go in and edit each of the clips. So you'll go in and edit for effects. If you want to do effects, you can do color. I wouldn't touch any of these colors just because they're not, they tend to be a bit too much. You see how this is really saturated? So yeah, I would recommend just doing none and just going to edit and just doing a general basic edit. And then these are some advanced features if you'd like them. Also, I would recommend you go into your audio and make sure you fix the audio in advance, not just basic. So look into all of the advanced features and make sure you're fixing all of your interview audio. And if possible, if the B-roll audio does not sound good, make sure you take that audio out. We don't want to be hearing too many different noises while you're speaking if it's not helpful to the overall video. So yeah, there's a lot to cover with editing, and so since this is your first run of the edit, I just want you to focus on laying down your footage so that it's similar to your shot list, but it also flows very well visually. You want it to tell a really interesting story of not just what you're saying, but how the visuals match the audio. So yeah, try your best. Don't worry if you can't stick to this completely, but when you pull in all your footage, make sure you pull it all in at the same time. And Premiere Rush actually does a good job of like arranging the footage for you, and then you can kind of play around with it after that. So yeah, I hope that was helpful. Please let me know if you still have any questions about editing, and if there's something specific that you would like to learn in terms of editing.